Okay, welcome to the FileMaker Pro User Group Dallas, Texas meeting for Friday, August 4th, 2023. I'm Taylor Sharp. Myself and Greg Price are your chapter co-coordinators, and we're glad to have all of you here for another one of our monthly meetings. As far as announcements going, there seems to be a lot of hubbub going around about Claris Studio and other things like that, but I don't know of any big announcements other than Engage next February. We got Pause on Air in October, but let's see. Greg, you got any announcements for us on the FileMaker Claris front?
As far as Claris, no. I mean, like you said, we're still waiting on word for Engage. Unfortunately, you haven't heard anything yet. Especially when it comes to the hotel or hotels that we are going to be able to use in that area. So hoping that we get that soon because clock's ticking and we're kind of within that 6-month window now. So fingers crossed. Anyway, the announcement I had was really more specific to this users group. And I just wanted to pass on some things that I learned in the last month. I've talked to a couple people, including a couple of my partners, who are part of users groups in other parts of the country. And the last couple of years has seen apparently a good bit of shrinkage when it comes to these FileMaker user groups. Some of them have reduced the cadence of their meeting schedules. In other words, no longer once a month, sometimes once a quarter. And some of them have not had a meeting in over a year. So the idea that we have these meetings every month and that they're kept on schedule is something that I think we need to attribute and be thankful for to Mr. Sharp. I am the co-chair, but I'm really more of a backstop. Taylor does the vast majority of the work behind keeping this going and has done a bang-up job. And I just think that we all need to acknowledge that and thank him for it. And a little round of applause for Taylor. Thank you. I really appreciate your efforts and the fact that our meetings continue pretty much unabated for the last 3 years is really something that we should be proud of, and you should be proud of, Taylor. And thank you for doing that, and hope it continues.
Taylor, I saw a note from Stephen Blackwell about a week ago. I think it might have been on LinkedIn, or maybe it was on some other FileMaker group, where he was talking about an early bird price for Engage. And I paid no attention to it. You just reminded me of it when you mentioned Engage a moment ago.
Well, certainly I haven't even seen a place you can register, so
No.
Right. I think the only other comment I would make is that
usually starts right around now when they give the initial details. So I think once we get initial details, there probably will be that. Maybe
he knew something that the rest of us don't know, but the only other comment I would make is there is no hotel within a range of the Apple conference center that's big enough to hold the entire conference. It's all small budget type hotels. So if we have a desire to get together as a group, we might want to focus on one of those hotels for reservations.
Good idea, Dennis. Good idea.
If Claris doesn't already sort of block some out like they usually do, which I would certainly
made mine long ago at the Marriott Courtyard, and I just throw that out there for reference.
Okay. Well, the other issue is going to be transportation. Everybody's going to need to get there, and hopefully they have something lined up for that as well, and don't have a bunch of us all trying to get Ubers at the same time.
Or you just do a scooter.
Maybe they'll set up yeah, Taylor, this is Austin we're talking about. I don't know if you want to be even giving that a shot down there. I'm going to be taking your life into your hands. But maybe they're going to build a Tesla tunnel over there for us.
Maybe. There you go.
You never know.
Maybe we should charter a motorhome and sleep in their parking lot.
Sure.
My brother did that for Mardi Gras. It worked kind of well. But anyway. Okay, well, I think that covers the announcements. Hopefully you guys are all up on the latest version of FileMaker 2023, version 20.1.2. It's out. I'm running it, and it seems to be stable. So jump on that if you haven't already. And at this point, I want to turn things over to Raf Batista. He's a friend I've known for a few years in FileMaker. He runs the Houston, Texas FileMaker user group. Owns a company called Ronel. Is it Ronel? Ronel, something like that. I'm sure he'll straighten me out in a second. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, but yeah, he's got a lot of interesting, fun things down there. And today he's gonna ooh and ah us about Connect, because we've kind of done a get excited about it. Then we kind of went through this where we didn't know what to do with it. We haven't done anything. We've kind of ignored it for a while. So Raf's gonna rejuvenate us here, hopefully. So Raf, will you amaze and inspire us now?
I'll do the best I can to amaze. So we're gonna just kind of look it over. Y'all have probably seen a bunch of videos and overviews. We're gonna do the video and overview. Take a look at just some things in general, things about Connect. If you have any questions, just feel free to interject. I'll keep answers really short during the presentation. At the end of it all, we'll have a big Q&A. I am going to do a demo. Some of it is planned. Other parts of the demo are not. It's kind of the way I put a little fun in these presentations. And then while we're doing the demo, if anybody has ideas on what you wanted to do with Connect, wanted to try a couple things out, if something comes to mind, let me know. Okay, so it's going to be kind of a generalized overview. I'm not going to get into any particular in-depth piece of it at this point, but if you do want to get a little bit deeper, we can always either set up another meeting, another presentation, or we can just handle things one-on-one. Okay, so I'm going to start my presentation, y'all. And I'm going to start showing my screen here. And pardon me, I've got multiple monitors. Make sure I get the right one. You should see the island, right? You see the island right now, people? Yep, you got it? All right. Let me see if I can get...
Not yet.
Not yet?
Oh, I see a little one.
Yeah.
Can you see it? That works for you now.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So yeah, it's going to be kind of a new look, only a new look based on a previous presentation I did, but it's actually more in par with what people have seen here this year and last year. So despite calling it more of a new look, it's not as much a new look. And of course, got the date there just so I can have it recorded. The agenda is going to be really, really simple. Right? It's kind of these. We're going to look at the overview, a quick thing of what it's about, look at some of the features, take a look at the connectors, a few of them, and then show you the demo. Because I think that when you see the demo and you see things in action, and you look at the scripts, I know that was my experience in learning Claris Connect. Those really speak more, I feel, than just discussing use cases and what you can do with it. So that's going to be an important part of the presentation. We'll have Q&A at the end, and a Q&A, cut us off when you need to, okay? All right, Taylor? All right.
Yes.
So on the overview, basically, first I'm going to ask, what have any of you heard of Claris Connect, and what do you know so far about Claris Connect? Anybody want to speak up?
Well, I'll say I was oohed and awed, and then didn't seem to do much to me that I hadn't already been doing with APIs, and I wondered why I wanted to pay a lot of money for it when it originally came out. It was so much more expensive. So, but anyway.
Well, you're correct, and that's something we should address because that is an important factor. The price, in theory, is coming down. It's going to go down even further. There's lots of talk about the licensing, what's going to happen in the future. But if you have a bunch of APIs already built, then some of this is going to seem, well, why do we need to have it? I think what this does is opens up the door to allow people to quickly put an API together, then especially if you don't have too much programming knowledge under your belt. And honestly, some of the more robust integrations I've done, in particular with Stripe, for example, there's a lot more I did this back in 19, so there's a lot of insert from URL that I used for those APIs more than I use Connect, to be honest. The only thing I really used Connect for was to grab the to get the notification that, hey, we've got a payment that was processed, and it gets posted to FileMaker to the proper invoice. And the reason we use Connect is because they had it for other reasons as well. So I said, oh, let's just use that. So yeah, there are still some things you're going to need to make your own APIs for, and the price is always an issue. Okay, but basically they describe it more as this cloud-based integration platform, which I love. Integration is kind of a thing, which is the thing that I like looking at your stuff, Taylor, that you've got all those APIs, and it's been a thing with me for programming for several decades now to find ways to integrate things together. And they call that an integration platform as a service. I think they lowercase the I for iPad, iPhone, and all the things Apple. And of course, it connects apps with an online UI. So if you are used to insert from URL in your FileMaker and what you've done there, Taylor and other people, that having a UI sometimes can be a bit more inviting, especially for newer users. They're just kind of getting their feet wet, and that's, I think, a very big thing for it. When I say this phrase that is based on flows that are organized into projects, does that mean anything? Have y'all heard those phrases before? Well, you have? Yep. Well, we're going to get into it. Perfect. Then we're going to get into how to make them and things like that. Like I said, in the demo, towards the end of the demo, we'll try to see if we can make one from scratch. But I've got a couple in here. You can see the steps, and we'll be able to take a look at what can be done with them. And then we're going to take a time in a demo to go to an actual live production environment to show you what has been done with like Twilio and things like that, just to see some more robust setups. So you can take a look that you can do some error trapping and such. There are templates available as starting points, but perfectly honest, I have not used a single one of those. But we'll take a look at them, see what's there. Okay. All right. So with that said, this integration platform as a service, you can build these connected workflows in minutes, which is the really big thing I think they're trying to do. If you already have a library of APIs like you do, Taylor, maybe it's not as fast to do it in Connect, but if you're coming from scratch, it is really nice. Okay, that was my experience, especially with the Twilio connections, which I'm going to show you in the demo. So there is this faster implementation, and the neat thing is you reduce a lot of interdependencies and things like that, where you have to be careful as to where your APIs are and other keys and other things that go back and forth. And Claris Connect makes it a whole lot easier. And what's really neat is every time you connect to, you set up a connection in Claris Connect, you don't have to go back and worry about it for the entire project, which is a really neat thing to do. I've got a couple of clients, one in particular I'll be using to show you and show you the real world production system. They actually have 4 or 5 companies in the same location. And so I've got 3 of them on Claris Connect, and you can organize by each project what they're doing. So it's really neat to get that together and be able to hold it together. They actually have different databases and tables to look at, but we'll get to that. For me, this was a big thing. We can have a unified online UI. Instead of having a library of APIs, you just copy and paste. Everything's together. There are pros and cons to that. The con is you're at the mercy of what the connector is going to let you do, and the connectors are being updated. We'll talk about the app directory and release notes later, but the fact that you have them all together and you kind of have them organized, they're secure, it really does help out. But again, sometimes it doesn't beat the copy and paste, but most of the time it really helps to organize. This part is important. I've found that some people who like the secure logins of Claris IDs, they like the fact you can have this one Claris ID that goes across all this and guarantee that security on it. Again, not as secure as having locally stored APIs. However, it really works really nice for those who are using their Claris IDs. And so you can actually build the flows. You'll see we're going to have some basic ones I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show you the more complex ones we built. It does include an if-then logic. You can do repeat loops. You can also trap for errors. We will not be going into the repeat loops here, but we'll just talk about that. I'll show it to you. There's a little bit of if-then logic in some of these flows I'll be showing you, so you can see how that works. And there's error trapping in almost every flow I've made. So that's very important to do that. So we can really do a whole lot of fun things with Claris Connect. And now I kind of went quickly through that because you probably have heard that everywhere. Hey, this is what you can do with Claris Connect. It's all together, and you can go connect things together, and it's going to be really neat, really simple, really fast. And you probably hear all this stuff. And Taylor, hoping by the end, maybe you'll have some inkling that maybe there's a reason for the cost. Personally, there is. My clients have enjoyed it so far, but like I said, I have found some limitations, but we'll get to that. I want to talk a little bit more. Let's dig into the features of Claris Connect, because we talked about flows and projects and what can be done. We're going to talk a bit more of heading towards the gate of where, how we're going to get there, and how we're going to get things done. So some of the features we're looking at, of course, you log in with a Claris ID, and some really cool part there is you can have end-to-end encryption. All right, so it's not just encrypting the data at each end, which of course is in place, but also down the wire. So you do have the security of that is an issue. And this was a neat thing to find out. I don't know if anybody has heard about this, but they do have an AI-based threat protection on that. So nobody can use your APIs without somebody even noticing it. And you do get this with it. I don't know how important that has been for anybody with Claris. I've only had to use that a couple of times early on with Claris Connect, but it's been rather stable since then, so I wouldn't have to. And I personally feel they're pulling out the in the beginning they were doing a lot of API work really fast, but it's sort of slowing down a little bit. They do have a dedicated SecOps and DevOps teams for the Claris Connect and helping you out. So that was a bit of those last two were kind of selling points for some of my clients because they knew it was sort of diving into a new pool and they didn't realize what's going to happen, and they wanted to make sure they got some support in the backside. Okay, so mentioning those in case that's an issue for anybody. Over here in the Houston user group, we're mostly in-house developers, and so we have to appease a lot of the bosses we come across, right? We all have supervisors. I myself own my company, but I'm sure there's a lot more of general developers out there in Dallas, from what I've heard. And so those last two are not as important, but it could be important for your customers. So we talked about flows and projects. The projects have a series of flows, and when you connect an app for a particular project, for example, one of the 3-4 companies that I have in Claris Connect for my client, those connections, for example, to the FileMaker server, connects just to their database, their tables, their part of the system or their solution, right? And you don't have to worry about connecting it again later on. And I've used it in several flows in the same project, not having to worry about it. Furthermore, you can maintain it, connect it once, it connects across the way. So it's that have found to be very, very useful for me. Now the flows. This is where all the work is done. You have a lot of actions that are done in a flow, and those actually do the work. When you have data that's moving around, it's the flow that does it. It has a trigger, and then it takes actions, which are the heavy lifting, and that's basically it. It is that simple. It's not even a 3-step process. It's just a 2. You have a trigger, it performs actions. Those actions can be simple, complex, and it doesn't have to include FileMaker. We'll see an example of where FileMaker is not included, and then we'll see one where FileMaker is included and where you can use it for. So you got to get your head wrapped around these projects and flows to really take advantage of it. There are a couple of things I've heard, and I'm sure that other people have heard different things. So you can bring up anything that comes to mind you've heard before. We can discuss it. Okay, so the projects, to go back and say this again, you got to get your head that it's used to organize the flows. I've had an example where I organize flows by related actions. I've done that a lot more for demos than for customers. I find customers tend to have me organize the flows by department. Each department has their own project that we take a look at. So you could do this one, parts of a larger workflow, take a larger workflow, say it's only for one company, but you're doing a lot of different things with it. Maybe you've got accounting, and you've got manufacturing, you've got inventory, you got different things that are needing to be done. You can do it that way as well. I've not seen that one actually in real world use, but I did hear about that, so I mentioned it out to you. So you got to figure out when you're going to use it, how you're going to organize it. Okay, don't just start diving in. I think we all have to organize our scripts and layouts. We got to do it here too. The flows. Every flow has a trigger. Okay, and that is what triggers the flow. And then that triggers actions to begin performing. They do the work. You can use app connectors. We'll do more on that later on. Which just connects different apps together, lets you transfer data between them, and they don't directly communicate with each other. Claris Connect sends data and grabs data back, and moves data around that way. And you'll also see that we have utilities. Claris offers those utilities, and you can text manipulation. You can do dates. We'll talk about the schedules where you can schedule something to happen periodically. We'll talk about HTTP where it is it's basically creating a webhook kind of trigger. Okay, so a lot of utilities that you can use, even store variables and to manipulate the actual data, the strings, images, documents. You can do a lot of things with just those utilities without having to go through FileMaker to process whatever data or anywhere else. Those were kind of useful in some of the real world applications that I've put together. So people don't talk too much about those. And then what makes it really important is the logic. The logic, you can have if, then, and repeat. We talked about that. So some of the things you can trigger with. Excuse that. So some triggers that I mostly use a lot. You see the HTTP, which is a webhook type trigger. We have a schedules. I've not had a real world application of the schedules trigger yet, but if you need to have something done, about to have one in a project coming up that needs to happen weekly or monthly, then you can have the trigger happen periodically, and then that can manipulate data or send out Slack or make checks to see status of something and send out a Slack message, a text message, or email or what have you. And you can do a lot of different things with that schedule. Now, there are kinds of utilities. This is really important that I've used quite a bit, where you need to manipulate dates or manipulate text data. I played around a little bit with moving around documents, but I've never played around with the images one per se. But you can actually modify data inside the flow to get it where it needs to be, especially if a connector or an app down the road in the flow needs to have the data in a certain format. You can format it using those utilities, which is really helpful. And the coolest thing is you can store this data in variables and use that and create calculations with it. All right. One of the ones I've not had a real world application for is handling approvals. They actually have an approval workflow inside Claris Connect. That alone can take up half a presentation, so we will not go over the details of it, but it does handle the approvals and lets you actually, it actually sends out emails and tracks who has approved whatever it is you want to approve, and so you can have an approval. Then you can test on whether something has been approved or not to continue with the flow or some other flow that's another part of the project. So that has yet to really catch fire on it, but I think it can. But not everybody's having that happen and connect quite yet. So those are some of the useful utilities that we can have over there. Now, we're going to go a bit deeper into the connectors here, because I want to talk to, and we always talk about the online apps, the simple user interface, okay? And it can obviously connect to the Claris platform. You'll note how there are 3 separate ones here: Claris FileMaker Pro, Claris FileMaker Server, and then Claris Server. The underlying APIs are obviously different for each of those. Mainly, to get to FileMaker Pro, you got to go through FileMaker Server. That's basically it. I think intentionally, there is also a Claris Studio connector that recently came out. I've not done much test with that, so I can't vouch for how good it is. But obviously, you connect to the whole Claris platform that's growing. We'll take a look at some links later on in this presentation that will show you the app directory and also give you the release notes on what's been happening and what's been being added over the last few years to these apps. So it is, of course, not just Claris platform. We're going to use in the demo Box. Anybody used to Box before? All right, and Slack.
Yes.
Slack has an API that's really not extremely difficult to go to directly, but it's neat that you can use Claris Connect for Slack. We're going to use just a really simple demo to show what you can do with Slack. It will also include a bit of FileMaker Server and Pro, and then we're going to go from there to, like I said, the real world examples. So one of the things to really get into with Claris Connect is going to be the fact that although you have this interface and it seems maybe you already have some APIs, nothing prevents you from using those other APIs along with Connect and start putting things together. It is growing day by day. And is it worth the price? That's always obviously a business decision that all of you have to make individually in the different individual projects. I have found very good value for my clients in using Connect as opposed to creating my own APIs. But of course, Taylor, when you've got your quite a big, large library of APIs and there's many available out there, it's up to you where is going to be the best way to go. Okay. I just like the way that Connect is set up. Again, licensing is a separate issue, but I think the way it is set up is headed in the right direction. So I was going to show you these links, and I'm letting it sit there a bit so you can take a look at them. There's an app directory that tells you which apps that Claris Connect does have. You can get those through you can go directly to the Claris website to get it to. And then I found the release notes. The release notes give you an update of what the apps are, where their current status is, what have been added to the connectors. Some have been deprecated, some have been updated, but it's a really good place to keep up with things. They do update it even daily. Usually it's more monthly, but it's updated monthly, but shown almost by the day. So you can keep track of what's going on and where it's growing. There are links through the, if anybody is a Claris partner and you go through the partner area in the website, there are places where you can actually give some feedback as to what connectors would be priority, what connector ideas you would have to give them, and they seriously take a look at that. They're a bit more developer driven as to what those priorities are. And honestly, they're getting a little bit overwhelmed with requests while at the same time having to deal with all the licensing issues. So they're getting busy with it. So I did see a slowdown in their releases and updates, but still, anybody who's a partner can go to the partner website and help them figure out what's really going to be important. So we talked about utilities. All right, here's some of the common ones that you may have heard about before: text, images, documents. You can store things in variables. Okay, you'll see that I've used text. I may have used variable in one of the ones I'm going to show you, but the useful utilities that I've been using there, the calculations I've used it, the HTTP trigger, that's basically triggering by a webhook. I have not used that as much, mainly because I just go directly through a FileMaker trigger, which is similar. And then dates. I actually had to use dates one time, and that would happen when I had brought in the payment information from Stripe and had to post it with a date. Then I had to go and manipulate that date a bit. So that's what that used. And I've not used in actual production the schedule trigger, but that's a really neat utility without having to program it any other way. Okay. So at this point, any questions so far on what I've said? And have you all seen some of that information before? I suspect the last question, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay, so no questions thus far. Anybody interested in what what I've done and what can be done with Connect? Anybody getting like, okay, get past this, show it to me? You at that point?
Yeah, show it to me.
Thank you. All right, so here's the demo. This slide is the last one in most people's presentations these days. Okay. Can you all see the screen now? Y'all seeing the screen right now? Can you confirm that?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Chris. There were other things in here, but I'm just trying to keep focused here. This is created just for y'all. Y'all are special. To show you the templates that I have not exactly used. These are so far the templates that I have can see. Not exactly exciting, but the point is that they are there to start as a starting point. So this is a project. You can actually create a new one. You can create one from a template. Okay, so I created one for Dallas FMPUG. Okay, and I only created 2 of them to show you real quickly what can be done. This is the name is not the name is up to you. Okay, you can always come in here and name it whatever you want to name it. I like to name it by what the flow itself is doing. That way I can look at the screen and see what's going on. Over here, this just turns it on and off. That's basically it. Okay. Has anybody seen this screen before?
Yes, I've worked with
A year
all
ago.
of it. I had it
Looks
for a
vaguely
year,
familiar.
and so yeah.
Okay. Awesome. You said you've worked in Connect before?
Yeah, I've done quite a bit with it, but just as far as playing with it and trying to make it useful. But I took a year to try to make it useful, and I didn't really get to that point. So
Yeah, the use cases are not immediately apparent, but they do have some use. And like I said, we're going to go into the real world ones that I've put together. And my database disconnected now. Oh, fun. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is the box to Slack, because right now my FileMaker decided to not be happy. All right. So where's box? Where do I have box? The box go closed? Excuse me, I'm getting back to my box account. It got closed.
Network connection.
Okay.
Talk to Steve about that.
Uh-huh.
There we go. So this is my box account. All right. Again, cleaned up. Have a nice little folder for you. And in here is just a PDF of your web page, to be perfectly honest. And at the same time, where is my Slack? There's Slack. We get Slack. So you can see some tests I've already done with Slack here. Okay. And so basically, I've got this file here. Okay. And what I'm going to do with it, we're going to go and download it. Okay. And then I'm going to show you how the flow is made. Okay. So if we were to say download, okay, I've downloaded it. Do you see back here? Can you see this?
Oh, okay.
You see that? Right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the use case for that is so minimal, but I think it can start sort of, wouldn't say whetting the appetite, but start getting your mind thinking. Okay. By the way, here's the file I downloaded. It's just like I said, a PDF of your website. Okay. By the way, my kids love pugs. So anyway, come back over here. They're like, "What is that? Why are you looking at dogs? So you're doing some work, Daddy." Okay. So basically, this is a trigger. Everything starts in a trigger. And this trigger is from Box saying that when a file is downloaded. If you come back here to the action, you see it's file downloaded. Here's some other actions, if it's uploaded or downloaded, if it's been locked or other information. Okay. And you can then, from there, this is the account. This signs into the Box account. And then you say what you want it to do. You configure it's going to be downloading from where? This particular folder. Any particular folder in Box. I chose that one, right? So you can save the trigger. And then what it does here, it comes to Slack and posts this message to this channel, and it posts this message here. Do you see this piece here? That says step 1 here?
I'm not seeing it.
You're not seeing this?
I'm
Can you
still on
see-
the box file download.
You're still on file download? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me know when you
There we
see the
go.
post. You see the post message now. Okay, making sure. All right. So this is the message. This is the Slack, and I'm telling you which channel in Slack. You're all familiar with Slack?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then you would say you decide which channel. I've already connected, so it knows which channel. I'm not going to go into. By the way, the random channel is not actually random. It's actually something. Anyway, but I chose the Dallas FMPUG, and I put this message. And I put this right here, the file with the name of the file. Okay. When you connect to Box, okay, when you connect up here to the account, it actually is downloading. It actually brings back from Box basically JSON data. And that JSON data includes a lot of metadata. It includes other information. And in this case, for example, you click over here on the plus. This is everything that came from Box. What type it was a webhook event, and what was created, what was the trigger, okay, who created that? That was just a user, me. So you can figure out who it was. Maybe we want to say that it was downloaded from Box by there you go, right? And now we save it, okay, and we bring back Slack.
We still have a locked up screen.
Okay.
What do
Now
you mean
there we
unlock?
go.
You got it, okay. And then we're also going to bring back the download. Can you see this page now? You see the Slack in the back?
You see
No.
Slack in the front.
Slack in the front. Okay. Now do you see the web page? You see the Safari with Box in it?
Yeah.
And you see Slack behind
Yes.
that. You have that? Okay. Now that we download this, and in Slack, remember we added the name to it, so now we know who it was. Okay. Not that that in itself is a use case, but the point is you can grab data back and forth and send it on to the next step. Okay. And that's all nice and dandy, but who wants to be notified every single time a file gets downloaded? Um, but you can imagine with the other connectors that we're going to take a look at here, if something, say an invoice is posted up on or some other file is posted that you need to know your customer downloaded that or not, your box area, the special box area, then this is a way to do that, because you can put this in Slack, you can put a notification back into FileMaker, you can execute a script in FileMaker, take that data, send it back into FileMaker, and have FileMaker execute a script that would then store that. You can go create a record that stores maybe a log of events somewhere. So many different things you can do without having to necessarily worry about all the APIs. Putting all the stuff together. Not that insert URL or the curl options is a big deal, but you can get a lot of things up and running pretty quickly. So that's one way to put the data one to the other. So that was Box to Slack. It's not using FileMaker, and that's all great and dandy. So I want to go now to show you a quick one of the FileMaker to Slack, okay? This one's triggered by a script in FileMaker, okay? So this is the URL you would use. And what's neat, and although I'm not using 2023, can you see what I have highlighted there? The trigger, the Claris Connect flow script step makes things a whole lot easier to, especially to connect
I think
with
your screen
FileMaker.
froze here.
We
Freeze
just
again?
see a progress.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. Now it refreshed.
There we go. The irony is I'm supposed to be getting about almost a gig upload, so that's very strange. But anyway, the point is that this new script set makes things a whole lot easier. I set this up with FileMaker 19 because of, well, honestly, previous demos I've set up have not updated them. So we're using 19, we're using insert from URL, but that really helps out in connecting to Connect. When I talk to my customers, it's kind of weird having to tell them that Connect is both a noun and a verb. They kind of give me this weird look, but this one is triggered by a FileMaker script that then gets set out here to Slack. So again, we're going to have a Slack integration. So I'm going to try to bring it out here. I took, oh, that's right, my FileMaker went down. I took the demo file, put it up on FileMaker Cloud. You'll notice over here, the trigger here, if we come here to select, I had chosen FileMaker Cloud. And the action was triggered by a script from FileMaker Cloud, which was really let me show you the things. Cloud triggered by the script. And this is the second time I played with FileMaker Cloud integration with FileMaker Connect. It worked really nice because both have Claris ID. But whenever you do connect to FileMaker Cloud, I don't know, do any of you have a FileMaker Cloud deployment? It's probably doubtful.
Not anymore.
I second the notion. Anyway, I'm about to get one of my, I only have one client left on cloud. I'm probably going to move them out here soon, unless Claris changes several things. But with cloud, if anybody wants to integrate, you have to make sure your team names are going to be the same. My team name had to change it to, had to change the team name on my Connect here to match the cloud that I was going to. And so keep that in mind. But with that, it triggers and then basically push that data onto Slack. Can you see the Slack settings now for the connector? Do you see it updated on your side? Not yet. There we go. You'll see that now, instead of actually choosing the channel, I'm just providing the channel from this data that came from the person, from the script that came from FileMaker. So I'm sending this data to Connect from FileMaker, and here's the message, leaving that completely open. I didn't change this piece here. Okay, I wanted to keep that there since I knew it was coming from Claris Connect. And one of the things with the Slack integration is to know and make sure that the app is connected to that particular channel. Have any of you done, and Taylor, I forget, did you do a Slack integration API?
No, I haven't done Slack.
Okay, because there's a setting in Slack that's got to be known, and I'll point that out here because this is inside Slack itself, and it's not anything that. Come on. Oh, come on, Slack. Thank you. I'm in Slack. Can you see Slack right now?
Yes.
Perfect. Put that up a little bit. Come on, load up Slack. Trying to open the window up a little bit for you. Okay, so a special setting in Slack that needs to happen with however you do the integration, whether it's through Claris Connect or if you're doing it directly. Under integration, you need to make sure that you add the app to the channel. It's not just enough to do to allow permissions for Slack to use the app. You must add the app to the channel. If you don't do that piece, then it can't post to that channel. Okay. So if ever you're having any issues of any sort connecting to Slack, that's a very big one. And it's not the only API that kind of requires that setup. So with that in place, I can now send to it. And you're like, okay, send to it through what? Really, as a FileMaker database. The one that crashed on me not too long ago here. Come on.
Of course, you can have a trigger like the one down at the bottom there that says you need to upgrade your operating system too.
Oh God. Like minimum system requirements by September. That's nice. Okay, thank you, Slack. Oh, come on. Come on, FileMaker. Why did you go down? Really, I had it all set up, and right here, right at the beginning of the demo, FileMaker goes and closes the files, and I lose the connection. I was going to show you in the FileMaker database itself. There's a simple little button, a simple setup. It's nothing more than the contact template that I added some fields to send a message to Slack. And it's having some issues opening the FileMaker Pro at the moment. However,
It's the presentation, guys.
There we go. Come on, FileMaker. It's just trying to connect all to my my different teams. I only have like 3 of them. So here we go. We might not get to the parts of the demo I had hoped to be getting to, but here we go. Put this sucker up, show it to you, and then I'm going to flip over to show you the real world examples that I put together with Twilio. Just going to go over that one. It's simple enough. It shows a little bit of if then on it. Opening the database to show you, which it was open, and all this time just getting back to connection. But the idea here is just to see how things are connected through Connect. While I'm waiting for the database to open, I'll go through here. You'll see this is the app connections. It's the same for the entire project. So you can reconnect it, you can delete it, you can test it all from right in here. All right. So even though you can have a bunch of flows, if something's disconnected or maybe your deployment's changing a little bit, you can change it here. Now, if you're, say, migrate from cloud down to FileMaker server, right? Obviously, you can't replace the cloud with server. You still got to go back into your flow and change that up. But having a place to reconnect really helps. In the very early parts of Claris Connect, we didn't have this. That was not fun. But we do have it now, and we love it. So here is this. You'll see, let's see if I can show you. Oh, this one's, I happen to show one of the flows that did not have an error. Yay. One of the flows I created here did have an error, and you'll see a little red box here and everything. You can always click on it and figure out, what happened. Everything's good for it. And they do actually have different version numbers. See the version number? You can come in here and actually reload that version. This is to reperform it, and you can actually go back and go back to a version before. So this is a very simple database. Here I am. No photo of me at the moment. And here's where I'm located, if ever it loads up. So
We don't seem to be seeing what you're looking at.
it's okay. Let's wait for that to load up. Something's very wrong with this internet. Really, why is it always fast until I go and start showing it to people? Can you see the? Can you see the? Can you see it yet? You see the context?
Yes. And
Okay. You see, it's got my name over here on the left side, and I have this tab that just says Connect. And so I'm going to put in here. FMPUG. Can you see the message and things I've added to the database right now?
quick message for the demo.
There, perfect. And we're gonna move this to the side. Go back to Slack. Let me know when you can see Slack in the background.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
You see it?
Yes.
Perfect. So now I'm going to go and click the button now. So send to Slack.
There it is.
And back here, you can see is the message posted. And although that's a very simple manual example, if something's done processing or what have you, you can send out an email, you can send out a text message through Twilio, you can send it to a Slack group, and do it all together, all through a Claris Connect flows. And it's actually a really quick way to put things together and to add the integrations with us. Now, copy and pasting APIs you've already written that may have many other benefits to it compared to Claris Connect, but I just like the way that Claris Connect allows you to see it visually and see the how things are more organized in these pockets online. And I wouldn't say to use one or the other. I would use them both together. Okay, so that way you can get, I think, the most benefit from both sides. All right, so that's basically it. Now I'd like to quickly go to the script underneath this. Okay. So can you see the script clearly yet?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. The first part, this is sort of my other verbose way of doing parameters using JSON, but basically this is a bit of error trapping, making sure you got a channel and message set up. Okay. And this is what really makes the integration from here to here. Okay. I like to set up the JSON data separately. I think it's pretty accurate. A lot of people say we got to do that. To use it with Claris Connect to be the trigger, you got to put the action as the script. to be a script action. And this is just simply sending the channel down the road and sending the message down the road. Okay, and that's what I'm doing with this. I'm extracting the message and the channel. And this is just making sure that the Claris Connect knows this is a script action to make it a trigger. I send that. Now, please excuse the older demo of insert from URL, but I send it to this URL that's uniquely created by Connect. Okay. And with that, I send it these curl options. And for those familiar with curl options, this can be kind of straightforward, but these are the curl options that actually Claris Connect designates and tells you to use. The new script step that lets you connect directly to Claris Connect for triggering has this part built in, okay? But here's the JSON data and how it gets out there. You may already be familiar with this, Taylor, but this is how we get that JSON data out there from FileMaker, okay? And then after, of course, when I come back, I capture the error and do some error trapping here at the ending here. But this is the part that does all the work. The previous two steps here set it all up. It is not an extremely difficult thing to set up, and Claris Connect handles the talking back and forth with FLAC and anything else that needs to be done. So that's the part that I like. I can handle certain error trapping and such inside FileMaker, but then Claris Connect just handles the integration. If there's any kind of issues with the integration itself, I can go there and modify the settings or reconnect if I need to, without having to dig through some scripts. So I really do like that compared to other setups I've had to do. So it's really not a very difficult process. There's just a lot of overhead in the way I've written the script, but you can see there's the data. Here is the URL that I like to separate out, and here's the call. It's that simple. And of course, nothing says you can't go ahead directly and do it all within the settings of insert from URL or what have you, but it works that way. So any questions on what you've seen thus far? Any ideas maybe coming to your head regarding insert from URL or what have you that then triggers the Claris Connect? No? Okay.
Logical.
I didn't hear you.
I say it's logical to me.
Okay. Well, it's designed so that you can get a lot of overhead out of FileMaker and put it into Connect. So those are the demos that I had set up for the actual demo. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the unheard of. Sign out. I'm going to sign into, like I said, this is real world, so it's not mine. In the world. All right. So now this one, they have, like I said, 4 or 5 companies. And so these are the 2 main ones being used. This is more of a test. But over here is where we have a Twilio integration, for example. And this one here, is it? There we go. This one sends it out from FileMaker. Now, sending Twilio messages from FileMaker is not a majorly difficult thing. Can you see the flow that is FM to Twilio? Do you see it on your side yet?
No, yes,
There it goes.
Yeah.
there it is.
You see it now, yeah.
Got it. You see, it starts with a trigger by the script. Okay. And then if it notices that there's no URL, so if you're not sending an actual file that's out there through the text message, then I found out through a little trial and error that you have to then send the message without specifying. Can you see the message settings now for Twilio on step 3?
Now we do.
Yes.
Now we do.
Yep. You see the message, you see the phone number. This is the origin phone number. This origin phone number comes from Twilio account. And this one here is blank. Okay. Turns out that if you don't test for that ahead of time, it can cause some issues. I think they've actually fixed that. But it's a neat setup where you have an if then. And then on top of that, if I send out to it, the out rec ID is really an outbound record ID that I'm outbox record ID that I use for updating the record back in FileMaker, so we can control what's in the outbox. So we wait a little bit of time. Here's one of those schedule actions, and you can wait for 15 seconds just to make sure things get sent out. And then you can go ahead and edit that record with the ID that you were given. If I sent that ID, there are times where we're sending emails out, or sorry, text messages out, where you don't need to necessarily update the outbox record that's associated with it. And it's because the record was sent more manually, and so the update already happened. Does that make sense? And so we have to test if we have that record ID or not. Same thing with an inbox ID. If something gets necessarily, if it's going to be sent or what have you, then it could also have been received by somebody there, and so therefore, is there an inbox ID? Let's go ahead and update the record that way. And it's the same logic down here, that if you did give an attachment, and is it going to be in the outbox or the inbox, all this jazz. You can see this. There is a lot of if then going on in here, all here in Connect. And we're connecting the FileMaker, Twilio, and although FileMaker triggers it, also FileMaker gets edited back with the data. So you do have a bit more complex logic you can do here. There are connectors for utilities that you can use for repeating loops and things like that. And that's that's useful too. This one, the Twilio to FileMaker, is the neatest one. The Twilio to FileMaker is you come in here, the trigger now, this is Twilio's logo. Can you see the Twilio settings now?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. And that, the trigger is a new message gets received. And then that new message getting received is then, this is one of those utilities where we're doing a replace on the text. We're taking the from, we are taking out this. Can you see the replace pattern step 2 settings in front of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then over here, we're basically taking out this plus, because this plus is given in the phone number from Twilio. We're going to take that out. And then from there, what we're doing with it, we're cleaning up the from and the to phone numbers, and we come in here. You'll notice how this FileMaker server has a different name. Search for existing conversation record. This is obviously not the name of the action that's in Connect, but we rename it so we know what it is. I personally like to keep the name of the connector up front, and then I put out here what it's doing. That way I can have some documentation. So you can edit the names. And of course, I got some error trapping on error, okay? But ultimately, we're going to create a new conversation record, which basically is a conversation record back in FileMaker. You see the FileMaker logo. Then we're going to search for the new conversation record that we just created using its ID. And why do we necessarily need to have that? We need to capture this ID of the newly created conversation record. So by creating it, you're not necessarily going to get back the ID. You got to go back and search for it to get it back. Okay, and the search is being used. The phone number is being used to get that record exactly. Because in FileMaker, you'll see the conversations being recorded. Now, if it was found, we capture it, and then we create a different message record in FileMaker. Once we know we're looking to FileMaker, we receive the message, hey, it comes from this phone number. Do we have that phone number in the conversation? If so, then we're going to go and just add the record. If not, we'll need to create the conversation. And then we can go ahead and add the actual message record itself. So it goes back and forth from Twilio using some utilities to manipulate the phone number that comes back. We do a bit of error trapping. We go look for it in FileMaker, and then we capture the ID and go ahead and create a message that adds to the conversation. Again, we're all in Connect, right? And so what's neat when this operates is you see the message record appear inside FileMaker. What I'm going to do now, if you can indulge me for another 10 minutes here, is connect to show you how that conversation looks inside FileMaker. I will warn you that these people are out there in Plantersville, Texas. Anybody aware of Plantersville, Texas?
Nope.
No.
All right. It's Texas Renaissance Festival is the biggest Renaissance festival in all the country. Happens to be in Plantersville, Texas, which is approximately, let me get this right, 5-7 miles north of Magnolia, I think. It's pretty far out there, and their internet is not the greatest. And they do deploy an in-house server. So cross our fingers, this will be fast. They recently upgraded their internet, so we'll see if it worked. This is the actual production file. I'm not actually going to send you a text message, but I will show you how there is a conversation in FileMaker. Also, as far as the visual design of it is concerned, I will say the design is rather old. I began working with them over a decade ago, and we had to keep to the same look and feel for them. Let's open this up. Come on.
Some 19.6 logos.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, a lot of these things have not been a 2023. Transitioning, my customers only beginning to transition in that direction. They'll wait a few months for stability. Come on. Come on. Here we go. Go to text messages area. And we come here to the conversation. And this part, the slowness on this is not my system, it is their deployment. And why are you sorting like that? What is that sort? But you can see how sometimes people can have an inbox and outbox areas back here. You can create a new message. The conversations, what's happening with this sort is their server. I think they were having some issues this morning. Because their server is in-house and the internet over there, there's not even fiber, to be honest. It's too far out there. It's kind of scary at night if you're coming back on a fall evening and you're coming back in a darker time of day. There's no street lights except the lights of the houses that are down the road. So it's one of those places. I think they got fiber installed close by earlier this year. They're trying to hook up to it. So all of us have a faster internet than they do right now. Come on. It's never. Oh, come on. Now I'm looking kind of showing this demo that is kind of on the slower side. But I want to show you how it looks in FileMaker. It's an important thing to see the conversations. But the point is that the FileMaker does receive the data from Twilio, and you can send it back out. They were very, very happy with it. They actually do have. It's important for them to keep in contact with their customers who only last year started messaging back and forth with them. And so this in FileMaker lets them track, get conversations in place instead of everybody giving away their cell phone number or what have you, or having to log into Twilio or having anything else to look at. They can look at it here. It was very important for them to do that because also they actually send out links for online payments on invoices that they're sending out to customers, and they can text message those links, they can email those links. Thus, the Stripe integration that needed some extra help, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, so come on, load up. What is it with you now? There we go. These are some of the newest conversations that have been happening. Wow, that's what's going on. This last time I looked at this, there were only like 20 or 30 conversations she's been having with customers. So this says a lot. These are some of the newer ones. I'm going to go through the ones that have already been read, just so we can see, so I don't mess up her stuff. The red ones are the new messages that either were sent out or came back in that need to be reviewed, need to be looked at. Let's see. Here's the conversation, and I put these so she knows who's sending what. And the yellow is what she's. Yeah, this operates like normal text messages. Who's sending things out and what's sending things back. And if I were to put something in here, it would actually send it to her actual customer. And this is the name of her actual customer. And so this information is kept in this conversation. And if we were to send a text message, you'll see it appear here. Again, it's not something that I can demo because it's actually real, a production file. However, the data from over here in this flow gets over there, okay? And then vice versa. So it uses those flows back and forth. And this one updates the status, by the way. I have another one that can update the status from Twilio. These are the Stripe. There's the Stripe information. So Stripe payment, it actually posts to one of her invoices. And then this is how the history works. She's got a pretty lengthy history here, okay? And we can always go back to anything and see what happened here. Somebody said they didn't receive it. It's like, yeah, you did, right? And things like that. So here's the connections. The connections here. We've had some things. And like I said, this here was a recent thing, and I've got to go and clean this up. Some old ones do not use, so I can click here. Bye-bye. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Let's see here. CPC. Temporary Twilio account. We can delete that one. Oh, it's because it's being used. Anyway, I got to clean that one up. So the point is that you can go back and forth and connect and make things a bit more robust. Okay, these flows we're looking at right now are in actual production, and it's been really, really good for my clients so far. Future integrations are going to include QuickBooks Online, and going to include more integration with Stripe and payment links. That's been really good for them to generate some extra cash flow. Any questions of what I've shown you? And Claris Connect in general?
I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me okay. Heather
I can
here.
hear you clearly. Yes.
Okay, good. So on the last example you showed us, you've got the
Yes.
history and you're drilling into the history to see, yes, the client did receive this text message. But I'm assuming that your customer doesn't have access to this Claris Connect interface to see that.
Correct.
So
Right.
how does the customer have to call you and say, can you verify this and give us proof? Or can you set up a flow in Claris Connect that ingests the history of Claris Connect activity into FileMaker?
You can't necessarily grab the history and send it to a customer or send it back to FileMaker. However, what you can do is take the results and then store them in FileMaker. So then in FileMaker, you can have a log of what's happening. So that would be the way to do that one. You capture the result right when the flow goes, and then that returns an error that you can, and then you send that error back to FileMaker and store that in a log, and you can always have it that way.
Right. Okay.
Okay. And that is the purpose of this right here. Okay. Because there's always a delay when you send a message out, right? And that delay can be from a few seconds to 15, 20, 30 minutes sometimes. Because a text message, Twilio may say, yep, I received it, but it's going to, after it receives it, it's going to attempt to send it to the recipient. But maybe 20 minutes down the road, 15 minutes down the road, the recipient is disconnected. Maybe they're in a dead spot, mobile, or it's just not received for whatever reason. Then Twilio gets the message back, right? It's not always real time because text messaging is not a real time communication. It's not synchronous. And so therefore, when you receive that back, that's when you then come back and update the status. Does that make sense? That would be an example of capturing that information and bringing it back to FileMaker. Does that make sense? I'll show you that how that flow works. All right. So what ends up happening in Twilio, you can actually set up a callback for any message that's sent out, and that callback will include the status. Okay. And you could also, instead of setting up Twilio or what have you with a callback, you can use a schedule that checks to see if something's come back. But when you get that back, you then find the record and you edit the status. Make sense? That's an example of what you were asking for. There's no interface in FileMaker per se to show the status right now. But I must say that this has been in place since what? I think since March or April. And it's only just beginning on their side to be interacting with customers using text messages. It's because a lot of their customers are not really getting into that aspect of things. But they've gone from 0 customers doing it to about 20 or 30 in just these few months. So it's growing fast on their side. And there is a way and there is a place that we can report this information if they need to. So I think that's the best answer I have to show you for what you're asking for.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's kind of wind things down here because we're kind of running out of time.
You got it, sir.
There's a whole lot you could, of course, get into the A2PC and all those things too, which is a pain in the butt. Jim's online; he's been dealing with that also. But a couple of ending announcements here. Next month, we're going to have Todd Geist and Martha Zink are going to come and do, what is it's the auto superpowers for your FileMaker server. And it will actually be probably a very, very interesting meeting from them too. So that'll be fun to have them in town. So get the word out on that. If any of you are interested in going through the FileMaker training series in a more interesting place in October, from October's 12th to 17th, I'm going to Dubai and doing some training out there. I'm going to eat some good food and a few other things. So we got that. There we go. Heather, get Steve to send you out there.
Yeah, we'll see if I can add that to the budget.
Anyway, and one last thing to say here. I don't know if everybody can see the screen, but Sarah Salinas has joined us here. So she's a little new to FileMaker, so she's absorbing a whole bunch of things. We're glad to have you here, Sarah. So hopefully we didn't scare you off. So
it was great. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Any last minute announcements before we wrap her up here?
Actually, if I could have just a moment,
Oh, that's
I
right.
wanted to say something.
Yes, Heather.
Y'all can't see me and you can't see what
right
I'm
there,
wearing.
Right there. We're going to change just a second.
They can see you.
Well, yeah, but they can't see enough for what I'm looking for here.
Just a second. Okay. Rob, if you'll stop screen sharing, we'll be able to see it, I think, here.
On it.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right. So I don't know if you can actually read what my t-shirt says, so I'm going to let
Is it the right direction?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you read it to them.
Gastroparesis.
Gastroparesis.
Noun, a condition that occurs when the stomach is partially or completely paralyzed, making it so it can't empty food normally. It often causes severe abdominal pain, nausea, bloating, vomiting, and more.
Doesn't that sound like fun, everyone? So gastroparesis is, as it says, it's a disease of the stomach where your stomach is partially or entirely paralyzed. And so food doesn't digest quickly enough. So it goes into the stomach and then it just kind of sits there. And it can sit there for hours or days or weeks. And it makes you very uncomfortable and can lead to all kinds of problems. Anyway, I was diagnosed with gastroparesis about 13 months ago. So August, which is why I'm bringing this up, is Gastroparesis Awareness Month, which is why I'm telling you all this. This isn't a woe is me story. It's just a doing my part to get the word out. Gastroparesis, there's estimated about 5 million people have it in the US. And out of every 100,000 people, there are 40 women and 10 men that have it. So it is predominantly in women, but it can also be in men. And the cause is often unknown. So for myself, it's idiopathic. It turns out that the silver lining to me by being diagnosed with this is that we discovered that my daughter has it as well. My daughter, unlike me, has been hospitalized numerous times because she literally can't stop vomiting. She can't keep food down, and she'll get so dehydrated that her mineral levels and potassium levels get dangerously low. And she'll do 4-day stints in the hospital because of this. And it was because of my diagnosis, when I told her what I had, that she called me a couple weeks later and she says, Mom, I've been researching this, so I know what you have, and I think I have it. And in her case, because it's not a hereditary disease, in her case, it was caused by Lyme disease that damaged the vagus nerve to the stomach. So people finding out about it and learning about it, because it is an often misdiagnosed or undiagnosed problem, constant nausea, feeling full too quickly, like you take just a couple bites and you already feel full. And that, of course, is because there's still food in your stomach from the last time that you ate or the time before that or whatever. So anyone who's interested in learning more about it, there is a site called About Gastroparesis. And this is, I'll put this up here, we can see it. That's how it's spelled, gastroparesis.
And I
And
assume,
if you all who are remote were here in person today, you too would get this really cool green ribbon pin, which I'm going to give one here. I'm going to give one to you, and everyone else in the room here already has one. And that's why I'm wearing this green pin up here, green ribbon. And it's the campaign is Wear Green for August for Gastroparesis Awareness. Oh, and the sloth, my sloth here on the t-shirt. The sloth is the official mascot of gastroparesis for obvious reasons. So
and
thank
what
you
is
for
it
letting
that you're
me share in
doing?
my part.
What is it that you're doing with FileMaker to address this issue?
So that's a wonderful question, and I have no idea. Come up with a FileMaker solution that helps.
You need to send a webhook and say, empty the stomach.
Yeah, so because there's no cure for gastroparesis, and it is a progressive disease, so it gets worse as you get older, or as in the case of my daughter, it's just really bad because her nerves like completely damaged. In my case, I suffer from a lot of nausea and stomach aches and stuff, but I don't have problems with vomiting and, you know, the more severe cases. Some people actually have to have tubes put in their stomach or have to have tubes to release gas or tubes to actually feed themselves through tubes because it can get so severe. I'm not one of those cases. And my daughter is yet to be determined. She's much more severe than me. But I have had it based on my symptoms for probably a good 10 years. And I was only diagnosed a year ago because I just had these, you know, I'd wake up in the middle of the night with stomach aches. And of course, by the time I get to the doctor, I don't have a stomach ache anymore. You know, so it took a very, very long time for them to find it. And it was actually only because I had an upper endoscopy done for a different reason. And I got scolded by the doctor for not fasting. And in fact, I had fasted. And he went, So they did what they call a gastric emptying study where they have you fast and then they feed you this meal that has radioactive dye in it, and then they take pictures of your stomach every hour for several hours to see, to actually look at the food and see how it's digesting. And that's how they actually diagnose it formally. But yeah, so I don't know, but I'm open to ideas. And that's it. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.
There we go.
And making you all aware.
Speaking of food, I wish all you guys remotely could join us here because we're about to have a little food, so.
That was lower than I expected.
Oh, yeah, it looks great.
There we go.
Bodies clammed into that.
Hey.
Okay, well, we'll see all of you guys next month and hear from Todd Geist and Martha Zink on auto. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Take care, y'all.
And well,
Bye-bye.
come on down. Now, this may not all work for Heather, but we do have some chicken and some sweet potatoes, some fun things.
So is this an office of just